You might be wondering what the whole hoopla about performance enhancing drugs is. It seems every day a new athlete is accused of using these substances. Stick around for Operation BioFun as we explore both the ethical and biological implications of this global controversy.
Fun, baby. Fast.
Good evening. It's 6 o'clock on Tuesday, and that means it's time for our weekly Operation BioFun podcast. My name is Chris Beltran, and I'll be leading the discussion today. Speaking of today, we not only have a special topic, but also a special guest. Our guest is a highly regarded research biologist, publishing works pertaining to various fields. He is the author of the New York Times bestseller 50 Shades of Steroids. And most importantly, he's just a great guy to be around. Listeners, put your ears together for Dr. Piscine Patel Sankar.
Thank you. It is a pleasure to be on your nationally recognized show, Operation BioFun.
The pleasure is all mine, Dr. Sankar. But let's not get caught up in the introduction.
Cut the chitter chatter.
My apologies, Doctor. We're getting off to a great start. Well, I think I can speak for the listeners in saying that I want to get right into the topic that we have today. And boy, is it a doozy. When the producers mentioned the topic to me, I just said, bam! Yeah, that's a great topic.
As did I, Mr. Beltran. So, what is this topic you speak of?
3 words. The topic is performance-enhancing drugs.
Sir, I think that was 6 words. Good sir. I can do the arithmetic.
Moving on. Before I was rudely interrupted, I was bringing to the surface a topic that is especially contentious,
Provocative.
controversial,
Touchy.
touche. Catch us after the break as we begin our profound discussion of an issue that is rocking professional sports and society as we know it.
So when is the Cool Ranch version coming out, homie?
Not soon enough.
Cool Ranch, Cool Ranch.
Cool Ranch.
Cool Ranch.
They should make a Cool Ranch one.
Well, they better hurry up before I'm dead.
We know. We did. Introducing the Cool Ranch Doritos Locos Taco.
Welcome back to Operation BioFun, where today we'll be discussing the function and use of performance-enhancing drugs with world-renowned scientist Dr. Piscine Patel Sankar. And may I say, you must be pretty excited about that Cool Ranch ad.
That I am.
But let's get to the performance-enhancing drugs, which we'll be referring to as PEDs often throughout the show. We hear about them in the news, on ESPN and whatnot. But I can't say we ever gain an understanding of how PEDs really work. They allegedly help professional athletes hit home runs. But biologically speaking, what's going on when athletes consume these banned substances?
Well, first things first, the term performance-enhancing drugs has been somewhat of a buzzword in recent years, given the widespread turmoil regarding doping scandals in professional sports. The term itself, though, has no exact meaning. It encompasses a wide variety of substances with different functions.
Now that's a good point. How would professional sports define it?
The list of banned substances in most sports includes everything from deer antler spray to methamphetamines. But I think you and I are most concerned with two general categories of PEDs, steroids and growth hormones. Reports, especially from the MLB, that is, Major League Baseball, have shown a great increase in the use of these two forms of PEDs over the past few years.
Now, doctor, what would make one want to use these PEDs?
When the terms steroid and PEDs come up, everyone pictures an athlete with huge biceps. While this is true to an extent, many PEDs have many other benefits that athletes would like to leverage. In addition to increasing muscular size and strength, PEDs also help with muscular recovery, fat loss, and endurance. Obviously, these are traits that are very important to athletes and coveted by many athletes around the world, and PEDs are also used in medical fields in various applications.
So you have me sold. I go to a shady sports doctor and convince him to give me a dose of anabolic steroids, and I take that dose. What exactly is going on in my body?
Well, steroids are basically fat-soluble hormones. Now, what is a hormone? Many of our listeners might be wondering. A hormone is a signal released that can affect cell metabolism in a variety of ways. Steroids were first created by extracting substance from a human testicle. Yes, you heard that correctly. How disgusting. That explains why steroids are closely linked to testosterone. Now, as we become familiar with steroids, researchers were able to create them synthetically.
Oh, thank God for the synthetic steroids. But gosh darn it, Dr. Sankar, you're hopping around the question. What's going on in my body? How are homeostatic mechanisms effective? The public needs answers.
Please, sir, calm down. Anyways, it's not that complicated. Any student that has taken AP Biology, that is Advanced Placement Biology, with a good teacher like Eileen Davey would be able to understand this easily. Now, muscle growth relies counterintuitively on muscle damage. When we lift a weight that's heavier than we would like, muscle fibers tear. The body must then recuperate by producing proteins for muscle rebuilding, and this entire process is called muscular hypertrophy, and it relies on testosterone to signal protein building. That is why testosterone levels generally increase during or after exercise. So it's unsurprising that anabolic steroids and the like mimic the function of testosterone. Steroids are typically injected into the bloodstream so that the substance avoids going through organs prior to its effect. From the bloodstream, steroids approach the muscle tissues, entering the muscle cells. But nothing happens until the steroid hormone, naturally or synthesized, binds to the androgen receptor. Now, the androgen receptor is an important nuclear receptor in the cell that often, especially after muscular damage, acts as an activating transcription factor. Because this receptor can promote transcription, proteins are subsequently produced and muscle mass is built. Is that good enough for you?
Well, that was a mouthful. Very impressive, Dr. Sankar.
And I'd like to add that the function of the androgen receptor doesn't just affect muscle growth. It's essential to the development and maintenance of the male sexual phenotype as a whole. That is why it can be a very bad decision for a woman to take strong steroids like testosterone.
You can say that again.
Yes, Mr. Beltram, you can.
But I have one problem. If most anabolic steroids are nothing more than something like testosterone, which is naturally found in the body, how do officials test for the presence of steroids in athletes?
Well, that is a great question. Designer steroids, which is what most of athletes are using today, are designed to be as potent and effective as possible. That said, they're designed to have a longer half-life than natural testosterone. Thus, they can be detected if taken recently.
Great. Now, you've been talking a lot about anabolic steroids, but we also hear a lot about human growth hormone. You know, guys like Lance Armstrong allegedly consumed HGH. What is that, and how is it different than anabolic steroids?
We've talked a lot about the role of anabolic steroids in amplifying the male phenotype, and that leads me to the primary difference between anabolic steroids and HGH. Steroids that mimic the role of testosterone produce specifically male effects, but HGH is produced by the pituitary glands of both male and female humans. The effects of HGH aren't specific to a single gender.
Now, I know that steroids are banned because they give someone a physical advantage. There was also a big hubbub about the negative effects of steroids on one's body. Can you elaborate on these effects?
Surely, steroids can cause acne, baldness, brain tissue damage, hypertension, impotence, and stunted growth, among many other things. The most publicized negative effect, though, is testicular shrinkage in males.
Quite interesting. I am really wondering how this happens.
Well, if you were paying attention, you would know that steroids contain testosterone. Because of this, the testes no longer have to produce as much of this hormone. Ultimately, this will cause a shrinkage in the testiculus. That is the Latin form of the word.
Before we leave for the break, Dr. Sankar, I hear you are quite the cricket fan.
Yes.
And we'll be right back with more Operation BioFun in a few minutes.
Hey, hey. Swagged out, swerve. Swagged out, swerve. Swagged out.
Now it's time to say goodbye to Dr. Sankar. Thank you for your time. And let's send it over to my friend and colleague Eric Lander. You may be expecting Eric to say a few words regarding the subject matter, but he is actually standing by in Boston with a special guest.
Yes, thank you, Christopher. Today I have with me none other than retired professional baseball player Barry Bonds. Now, Mr. Bonds holds the record for the most all-time home runs with 762 big ones. All right, let's get started. Now, Barry, how do you respond to those who say your great career is tainted by your use of steroids?
Okay. My response to everything is simple. Either you have it or you don't in terms of skill. Steroids aren't going to change that. People think steroids give you superpowers. No, they don't.
All right, but how do you respond to those who say PED use is in fact cheating?
Sure, they help build muscle to some extent, but not to an extent where it gives someone a huge advantage. You still have to put in the time in the weight room, and if you look at baseball, some of the most unmuscular guys are the best and the highest paid players. Look at the superstars from my era who succeeded without steroids. Randy Johnson, Pedro Martinez, Roy Halladay, and the list goes on.
Well, if this is true, why would you use steroids in the first place?
Everyone is different and everyone is an independent individual. I live in America, and I should have the right to do what I want as long as I am not harming someone else. I wanted to use steroids, so I did. As I've said, either you have the skill or you don't. Steroids aren't going to change that. Why doesn't the MLB just ban everything from protein shakes to vitamin tablets? These also give you a benefit, don't they? Why aren't these items considered cheating?
Astute observation. But do you think steroids should be readily available to players?
Yes, I think so. People want to watch bigger, stronger athletes, and if steroids are available, no one can complain about unfair competition because they can just use them themselves. Just look at what I did for the MLB. I raised ratings to a point where they had never been before. Everyone wanted to watch me. I'm the best thing that has happened to this league. Now, people want to taint my legacy because I use steroids? Please! People use me for their entertainment, and it is wrong for people to turn on me now. It is a selfish act.
Barry, thanks for your time.
Thank you for your time, Eric and Barry. This is Chris Beltran, and I'm back. To further our discussion on PED ethics, we welcome in Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. has been covering sports for decades and currently works for ESPN. Stephen A., welcome.
Thanks, brother.
Now, we just heard Barry Bonds speak. What do you have to say on the topic of PEDs? Should PED use be considered cheating?
Now, if only this was a video podcast, people would be seeing me shaking my head. It pains me to say this, because Barry Bonds is a dear, dear friend, but I could not disagree with his statements more. Barry is trying to diminish the effects of these PEDs. I am not going to meddle with all of that. Ultimately, even Barry would agree that PEDs have some sort of benefit, however small he may think this benefit may be. In my opinion, any benefit is too much. It creates an uneven playing field.
How do you respond to him saying that, in that case, protein milkshakes should be banned?
First of all, let me start off by saying that is a blasphemous statement. Going back to what my dear friend Dr. Sankar said, PEDs change the way your body works. They do something that is unnatural. They change your body. A protein milkshake doesn't have these properties.
That's great, Stephen. Do you have anything more to add?
Yes, PEDs muddle the sport. Unlike what Barry said, steroids can make you faster, and speed is very important in baseball and other sports. Ultimately, I will leave with the example of Sammy Sosa. Once upon a time, Sosa was 165 pounds heavy in college. Then in 1992, in his second year in the MLB, he became 220 pounds. That just doesn't happen naturally. His steroid use explains why this weight increase happened and why he hit more home runs as his weight increased. Again, this disproves what Barry said about the impact of steroids. The impact of steroids is very real, my friend, and it's ruining the sport I love.
Well, powerful message by Stephen A. Thank you for joining us today, Stephen. Now, Stephen has not only explored the ethical questions of PEDs, but he has also shed light on the crucial biological fact that pertains to these substances. They do alter bodily functions. And with that, we'll head into a quick commercial break. But when we return, we'll be discussing some fascinating biological research. Welcome back, avid listeners. This is Chris Beltran, and I'm back with Dr. Piscine Patel Sankar. Now, Doctor has been conducting some groundbreaking research in his lab at Stanford University. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure.
Well, Doctor, I'm going to give you the reins here for a few minutes. I just want you to tell the world exactly what you are developing.
It really is superb. I've been working with biologists Dennis Graham and H. Craig Heller at the great Stanford University. Whether or not you believe steroids and other PEDs should be used or not, one thing's for sure. They do help you recover and they help you get stronger. Improving physical recovery and development is of interest to athletes and scientists everywhere, and me and my guys in the lab have made significant progress in this area. Think about what many athletes do after a strenuous exercise. They take an ice bath or use an ice pack on a sore area. We've taken a closer look at the science of cooling, and here's what we found. When it comes to maintaining proper muscle function, we must keep in mind an important balance. If an area becomes too cold, then conditions dip below the local vasoconstrictor threshold and blood flow decreases. If an area becomes too warm, on the other hand, then a certain enzyme called muscle pyruvate kinase becomes inactive. That kinase is essential to the muscle's ability to generate chemical energy. Therefore, we must find and maintain a balance, a temperature within both vasoconstrictor limits and muscle pyruvate kinase limits.
Okay, get to the point, Dr. Sankar.
Well, now, at the prestigious Stanford University, in my prestigious lab, we've created a special device. You could call it a rapid thermal exchange device. In other words, it's a big mechanical glove that creates a vacuum, but also effectively regulates the temperature of that bodily region. Now, a vacuum is created in order to encourage blood flow, and temperature is regulated in order to maintain enzyme activity. Now, athletes who use this device experience a recovery time of not years, not months, not days, not even hours. They experience a recovery time of minutes in the affected muscular area. And of course, the funny guys at the lab have a running joke. They say the glove is better than steroids.
Fascinating stuff, Dr. Sankar. Where can I get me one of those? That's some cool technology.
Well, if you call 1-888 Stanford Hotline...
No, sir. No soliciting on these public airwaves.
Well, that's all we have for you today. Thank you, Dr. Sankar. Thank you, Mr. Lander, Mr. Bonds, and Mr. Stephen A. Smith. It was a pleasure. So I ask you to join us next week on Operation BioFun.